I pledge to stay drug free.
I plan to stay drug free.
I pledge to stay drug free.
I pledge to be drug free.
I pledge to stay drug free.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we have a very, very special guest in the studio with us. Her name is Miss Bernita Bradley. And before we get started, our show is live. Our calling numbers are area code 313-868-0342, 313-868-0351, 313-868-4336. You're watching live in the awesome cities of Detroit, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor, Mike Duggan, as well as the phenomenal city of Highland Park, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor, Glenda McDonald. You're watching us in two phenomenal cities, and our show is called Expose Under the Sun. Just want to wish everyone watching the show today a happy new year, and I hope that all of the resolutions that you've made come true, and I pray that everyone stays in good health and stays in the sense of contacting anyone that you may have not spoke to. My mother used to always say, God rest her soul, son, I haven't talked to you since last year. And, you know, that was always her running joke with me. You know, she called me up on New Year's Day, or she called me up the day after New Year's Day. And she was, boy, it's been so long. It's been, what? I haven't talked to you since last year. So we get a crack, laugh at that. So that's one thing that I do miss, you know, not having an opportunity to tell Miss Hilda Griffin that, yes, Mom, you're right. It has been since last year since I talked to you. But if there are people out here that you haven't talked to in a while, please make contact with them. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know that you love them. And let them know that you are always going to have them in your thoughts and in your prayers throughout this upcoming year. Okay. I just want to say one other thing, too. I was watching the football game last night, Monday Night Football, and I just want to extend my thoughts, my prayers to the young man on the Buffalo Bills team that got injured in the game last night. And those of you that follow football, there was a game between Cincinnati and Buffalo, and there was a player on the Buffalo team that made a tackle, and after he made the tackle, he got back up, and once he got back up, he fell back down again, and there may be some serious injury to this young man. And very young man. I think he's only like about in his mid-20s. But our prayers go out to him because he's in critical condition at one of the hospitals in the Cincinnati area. So again, just want to extend our thoughts and our prayers go out to that young man that he makes a full recovery. Okay. Our guest today, to probably some, they may know her. To probably others, they may not, but they're going to get a chance to know her today after they get a chance to see the show today. Her name is Miss Bernita Bradley, and she is the founder and president of an organization called Engaged Detroit. And she is the director of Parent Voice, the National Parents Union. And I just want to thank you and welcome you to the first edition of Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun News. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's get started. Now, Engage Detroit. What is Engage Detroit, and what inspired you to found or start Engage Detroit?
Yeah, so Engage Detroit is a homeschool co-op. We actually partner with families and community organizations to make sure that families have what they need in order to do homeschooling effectively and efficiently. During the pandemic, we had a whole lot of, like, the story can go on forever, but literally Detroit families were totally disconnected from education from March to May. Like, no tools for learning, right? A lot of families didn't have connectivity to their educators. A lot of families didn't even have tablets in their house. Even though the schools were doing a lot, like, no pun against the schools, but it was poor when it came down to connecting those kids to being educated. And in a city like Detroit, where we only have 16% of our children reading on grade level, and that was before the pandemic, by third grade, parents were literally like crying out for help. We had a couple of obstacles where some of the school board members of the city of Detroit were a bit condescending to parents, and we, went to them and was like, okay, parents, like, they got a right to ask for support for their kids, right? We're seeing kids in Grosse Pointe going home, and not to say education was perfect for anybody, because it's a pandemic, right? But kids are still learning. Other schools was figuring it out, but our kids and our parents were being told to, like, give us time, like, wait. And we didn't have time to wait, especially when kids were at home struggling. People were trying other online alternatives for education. They were like, this is not what my kid need. And so parents were tapping out. And I've been doing this work now for like about 15 years, not homeschooling, but just advocating for what families need and showing families how to advocate for what they need. And so with that being said, while I saw families like tapping out, like, it was a lot of parents who was like, we just gonna go on a sabbatical year. We're not gonna even do no. I'm like, no, wait. Like, kids can't just sit at home for a year and do nothing like this. So what do you need to do? Parents were like, well, I would homeschool if I could, but I don't know what to do. Okay, so we start partnering with homeschool experts to say, get online. Let's talk about what homeschooling looks like. Let's get you in a room with some parents and tell them what they need to do. Michigan is a real fluid state. Excuse me, I don't know what's going on with my voice. Michigan is real fluid when it comes down to homeschooling. Like, you don't have to jump through a lot of hoops like some states. But parents still didn't know what to do. So we got them the tools to do it. And it eventually evolved into actual business. We were just doing it for free, like, just helping families and making sure kids were, like, connected to ABC Mouse, PBS, making sure they were connected to community supports like Brilliant Detroit or Detroit Parent Network to say, what can I do to make sure my child is constantly engaged? And then the parents were like, well, I think I like this. Like, I think I might want to homeschool for a while. And ironically, a lot of the parents were saying that they've been wanting to homeschool. Like, I really was just scared about it. Like, my kids have been struggling in the education system, and including my daughter. My daughter asked me to homeschool her in 5th grade, and when the pandemic happened, she was in 11th grade. But I was like, I don't want to be your enemy. Like, no, I'm not a teacher. No, I'm not about to be that for you. I imagine homeschooling being like pulling teeth. Like, we sitting behind a desk all day long. Like, you gonna do this, you gonna get it done, or And I start listening to some of the homeschool experts. Like, okay, I think I can do this. Let's try it, right? My daughter, even, who doesn't go to school in the city, she had no connectivity to teachers from May to literally June, when teachers finally came on. So the governor came online and was saying, like, that, they were talking about giving children a pass, like a pass-fail grade, like, as long as you just logged on. And the governor was like, no, like, you need to be educating students. So then teachers came online and was like, either get all of this done like in 30 days or you're going to fail. And that wasn't fair to kids, right? Like my daughter came to me and said, nah, if this is how my senior year is going to be next year, I'm going to go take my GED and I'll just graduate early. And I was like, no, why would you do that? When you love education, my daughter's like a lover of education. So we started homeschooling. And what we got was coaches for parents. So Engage Detroit offers free coaches for families. They get private coaching. Before we were doing it all online with different parents all together. But, parents have their own unique issues with their kids or learning. And doing that was like more significant for families to sit down and say, what does my household need when it come down to homeschooling? So that's what we did. We got coaches for families and got support. So like I said, I've been doing this work for over 15 years now, and I have so many connections to so many organizations. I started going to some of those organizations, like what will you offer homeschool families, right? Like what will you do for these families while they're doing this? And so that led to Engage Detroit.
So what do you find are some of the benefits to homeschooling versus going to regular, to schools?
Well, one, a lot of people don't understand that a classroom is just about 55 minutes, right, on a daily basis. It don't take that long to educate one child or 5 kids, your own children, on different subjects. It really just doesn't take that long. So parents are learning along with their children, as well as those children literally are guiding learning. Because we're finding out that children are saying, wow, I really do like math. I just didn't like it in this larger group. I like it in this smaller setting. Or I like it with this little co-op that I have because I can ask more questions. It's more intentional and more focused around what I need as a child. And parents are seeing like light bulbs come on in their kids' heads, which is like wonderful. Like that's the highlight of doing this for me, when I hear a parent who comes to our co-op like in the beginning of the semester and they frantic, like on pins and needles. I don't know what I'm doing. I just know I can't send my child back to school. And then here we get in October and the parent is coaching another parent like, girl, you got this, or dad, you got this. Like, oh, okay, my kid came home, or they're putting things into our group chat like, look at what my child created, or look at what award my child won in this DAPSEP program, or whatever it might be. And these are things that parents are like, wow, so my child did have it in them. It was just the schools wasn't pulling it out of them. Yeah.
Well, see, one of the things that I hear about the homeschooling is that a lot of the parents are concerned about the social skills that their children don't receive compared to going to public school.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so that's because a lot of parents don't know what homeschooling really is, right?
Okay.
They think of homeschooling as all homeschooled children are like these little awkward kids sitting in the corner and just really don't talk to nobody. Like we have actual meetups, right? Homeschool students are really in group sessions on a daily basis. Now, during the pandemic, everybody was isolated. So let's be clear there, right? But as we're starting to open up from the pandemic, there's intentional moments where we're bringing the families together. Kids are doing co-op classes with DAPSEP, and these are public school kids, homeschool kids, and charter school kids still together, right? They get interactions. And then we have some kids that do a hybrid model. So they may do a model where they go to public school for their extracurriculum classes or for like football or something. And then their core classes are done, which is the science, math, and reading, right? They do that at home.
So they still get some of the social skills,
Yeah.
being around other young people
Yeah.
in the classroom. And especially where a lot of people are concerned about the social skills when it comes down to sports.
Yeah.
So they're still able to gain some of that at the same time with still getting their education.
And it's not necessarily just sports, right? A lot of people think that's the only thing that kids engage with outside of homeschooling at home. Like they're in debate clubs. Mm-hmm. We have kids in engineering programs. We have three young ladies. I love to talk about them. Like literally one, Grace. This little girl did not talk that much. Like very smart when she was in public school. Mm-hmm. Now her mom is like, but she actually talked to people now. Like, she starts a conversation. Like, she'll come up to her aunt or something like that and start talking about global warming, or start talking about peace over war, peace versus war, right? Things she learned in a book, because she want other people to know. It's not like she's like, look at how smart I am. It's just in her mind now. Like, education is working. The other little girl, oh my God, Charlie. Like, this little girl started acting with a program we partner with called Out School, and her mom was like, yeah, she's taking acting classes. No, now this little girl is like actually doing monologues. Like, I would love for you to invite her on your show one day. She would probably humor you. She would probably run the show, right? And she went from being this little kid, this little like 8-year-old kid who was just quiet and kind of, into her schooling, but through homeschooling. Now this little girl is doing speaking engagements in church and all kind of stuff. And her mom's like all of this happened during the if it happened during the pandemic for her like that, what's going to happen after the pandemic, So it's a myth that homeschool family, not that every homeschool family journey is perfect. Now, let's be clear there, right? Because we've had some families who are like, yeah, this is not for me, and they return back to school. But even in that, I challenge those families to make sure those schools have what they need, their child needs when they return back to school, because that's the most important thing.
So when you look at the rubrics in terms of, say, behind persons that may have been homeschooled versus somebody who went through public school, is there a way to be able to go, aside from like taking the SAT or the ACT test, is there a way to measure just how well that child did, and did they get the education of a fifth grader, sixth grader, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, so some families still do those tests. We have partners, those same organizations that partner with the schools, they'll partner with homeschool co-ops. One of my jobs is to create those partnerships. So we have a partnership with a group called Edmentum now, where Edmentum will be doing assessments. The difference is most homeschool families, they're like, I don't want to wait 2 years to get my proof of what my child, I want to get it right now so I know what to be working on with my child, right? Or I don't want to wait to April to get it. I want to get it right now. So Edmentum is offering families the opportunity to take these tests 3 times a year, just like the school will, and then the parent get it back. But they're getting tools back with it, right? Like, okay, your child's a little low on literacy or phonics or whatever it may be, depending on the age. And here's some steps that you can take as a parent to get your child on track. Or here's some readings, or here's some lessons we want them to work on, and then let's recalibrate this in about a month and see where they're at. And so parents are seeing like the success in that's another myth, that parents don't want to be tested, or that homeschool families don't get tested. They really do. There's homeschool coaches that we have that will do assessment on a kid. We work with children who have IEPs, which is the individual education plan. Same thing the schools have. We'll show families how to get those resources either through their local public school or how they get that through their health insurance.
So now, if a child is homeschooled, now, are there any concerns pertaining to, like, because a lot of times children may go to school, there may be some behavior issues that may go about, in the schools. But it seems like that might be a better way to handle the behavior issues of children if they are homeschooled, because they're with mom or dad, or, a guardian or a grandparent or somebody like that may be able to kind of keep them, from acting up or not doing their work while they're, giving an assignment or something like that. And then to make certain that they're doing the work that they were assigned to do and not bothering somebody else. Like sometimes, how you'll see in the classroom where child may not be able to go and comprehend the information and may start making noise or doing something that distracts the other children, in the classroom with them. But it seems like that could be an advantage, right there, that would keep them from doing, something like that. But one thing I want to ask you too is that when you're looking at the children now, you help with what age groups, from what grade to what grade?
Ironically, we do birth to 18.
Okay.
Right, because the the fact is that the parent is the first teacher. And while we don't work directly with the students, we work with the parents to get in the parents' mind that you are your child's first educator. If you are not a part of their education process, it's going to fail. And I don't care if a child goes to the most Ivy League school and you're paying $50,000 a year for your child to go to school. If you are not a part of their education process, there's going to be some deficiencies there for that child. And so we teach the parents about reading to the baby, like reading even talking to the baby when it's in your stomach. We have a doula. That's a part of our program.
What's it called again?
A doula. So that's a woman, common name for midwife, right?
Okay.
But they go deep into education and helping the family understand that you had this new human coming into this world and what you need to do to prepare and to keep it successful throughout life. So let me go back though to the behavior issue. So when you talk about behaviors, most times when you have those kids, my brother was one of those. We were educated right here in Highland Park. Miss Miller, if anybody know who Miss Miller is, please. She was my 4th grade teacher in Liberty. I've been looking for her forever. Miss Perryman was my high school teacher, right?
Miss Brenda Perryman.
Miss Brenda Perryman was my high school teacher. Like, we had teachers, we had educators, we had people who loved what they did. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you, if we act up, those teachers had direct contact with our parents, and our parents had direct contact with them, right? Miss Couch, who used to be the principal, her family lived 3 doors down from me. I used to hate to see her at 3 doors down from me, like my principal on my block, right? But back to the behavior issues. So when the kids are in the classroom and you see those behavior issues, my brother was one of those kids. Miss Miller was one of the teachers who was recognized that in my brother. My brother had failed 2nd grade. Miss Miller was like, "Oh, I see you now. I see what you're doing. You're not going to keep disrupting the rest of my kids in this class. So how about I'm going to pull you over here." She would pull my brother to the side and make him grade the other kids' work while they were doing their work. And at first he thought it was like, oh, like this is wrong, right? But then he started feeling like he was empowered, like, oh, I'm grading y'all work, right? But it was like her connectivity to him. And then slowly she started telling him, when he liked it, okay, so you can't grade their work until you do your work, right? So it's all these different ways. A lot of the teachers nowadays don't even have that autonomy to do that. Their first recourse is to go to the office. I'm gonna call your mama. Go home, right? And when kids are struggling and they're acting out, it's because they're struggling. It's something not connecting them to education. So with homeschool, we have those partner groups where another kid can mentor another kid, or a kid. Perfect example. One young lady, Stacy, her son was really being suspended all the time, always in the principal's office. She sent me a photo of her son laying on the floor during the pandemic, doing his math, about 13 different colors on the paper. She said in the caption of the photo, now, when he was in school, he always got kicked out of the class for doing this. But look at him. He's completing his work. It's just in different colors. Why did he have to get kicked out of the classroom when he was in regular school? Right? Like, that's how his brain worked. That's how some kids are. But we have to understand that, like, the education system right now is really flawed for brown and black kids. It really is.
So now, in the couple of minutes we have left, you've been giving some accolades for some of the things that you've done as far as, say, with young people. What are some of the accolades that you've gotten as far as, say, in the community?
Yeah, so we got a recognition from the governor's office for being a unique new type of school option, which is homeschooling is not new, and I'm not the one who founded it, right? Like, but it was an honor to see all the work that we do being acknowledged. We've gotten grants. We just won a Yas Prize. So we don't just help families with homeschooling. We actually fund some of their resources. So we got a prize from the Yas Foundation of $200,000 to actually.
What is that? The Yas.
Yas is a family. They are an education funding family where they ran a prize over the pandemic, a competition, I should say. Mm-hmm. And where they were funding like schools that were going out of the box and saying we got to do something different. Like we got to totally reimagine, rethink education, whatever you want to call it. I tell people like all the time, it's not about buzzwords no more with me. Like it's not about school choice. It's not about buzzwords. It's not about rethinking. It's about whatever works for kids is what we need to be doing it. And the reality is in school is not working for every child. We know that even in Detroit where Dr. Vitti said that in 2021, they had a 62% retention rate or truancy rate, right? Like that means 62% of your children did not show up in enough time to actually pass. Like, what do you mean? Something's wrong in education. Mental health crises, people are blowing that off on, oh, something's wrong with the kids. No, these children are disengaged, man. And it's going to take all of us to get it together. It's going to take all of us to make sure these kids stay engaged.
Now, if someone wants to get in contact with you, in the minute that we've got left, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, if they want to utilize your services, what's your website? If they want to go on and look up information, or if they want to contact you directly, what's the contact information, please?
So they can contact me at engagedetroithsc.org, or they can contact me at Bernita, BERNITA, at npunion.org. That's npunion.org. Or they can look us up. Just look us up on Facebook. Look up Bernita Bradley on Facebook. I'll connect you to anything or any supports that it's not just about homeschooling for me. It's about creating advocates of parents and making sure parents understand their power and how effective they are when they advocate for their children, no matter what type of school they're in.
So in the last few seconds that we've got, what is your advice to parents that may be having problems with their children getting educated?
Become an advocate. And if you don't know how to become an advocate, check us out. Like we have courses about how to become an advocate. Learn your policies, learn your laws. You have rights as parents. Your children have rights as students. They can't just be a dollar in a seat. Your children have to be a body in that classroom and a human being that schools are understanding and recognizing that they need multiple types of support. And one little rubric is not going to get it. So parents have to become advocates.
Okay, give your contact information one more time.
So
a
it's
few people that might not have heard you the first time.
So it's Bernita, BERNITA, at npunion.org. That's npunion.org.
And now you're located where? Where?
I am located. So I'm a national director. Mm-hmm. So I'm in Detroit, but you might see me in Texas. You might see me in Washington, like all over doing work around parent voice and making sure parents know what they need.
And what is the future for your organization?
Oh, the future is making sure that more families have access to multiple choices, making sure that families are advocates, and we pay it forward. So what we teach you, you can't just come get it for free. You got to actually help another parent. We're not creating advocates for you to go and just advocate for your 2 children or your 3 children. You got to be advocating for children on your block, in your city, wherever it is. That's how I started, and that's what we're doing.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on Expose Under the Sun. This half an hour went by so fast. We'll have to have you to come back again and get on the show again with us again and talk more about what you do in terms of, say, with trying to educate children. My special guest today, Miss Bernita, and Miss Bernita Bradley, and the company she has is called Engaged Detroit. Now, we are coming to you live in Highland Park. We're sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper, and if you'd like to get a copy of the Detroit Native Sun newspaper, you can go and you can contact Ms. Valerie Lockhart. If you want to advertise in the Detroit Native Sun newspaper, you can also contact Ms. Valerie Lockhart at area code 313-457-5944. And you can pick up copies of the Detroit Native Sun News in a lot of the local supermarkets, banks, and other establishments throughout the Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County areas. Again, thank you for watching Expose Under the Sun. Happy New Year. Be safe, and make sure you let somebody know you love them.